In September 2023, just days before the original 1 Million March for Children, union leaders convened in a secret emergency Zoom call to organize and counter-protest against parental inclusion in school. Now, I believe Canadian unions have strayed far beyond their original mission, which I believed was for improving pay, benefits, and working conditions of the union members. Now, the Million Marches were populated by ordinary citizens and parents finding their voices for the very first time on a political issue, many of whom had never organized a protest or even attended a protest before in their lives. They were simply speaking out against what they viewed as far-left politicization of education. I'm Melanie Bennett. Let's get into another episode of What the Heck Have Unions Been Up To? So why are union executives so worried about citizens exercising their democratic right to peaceful assembly? Don't take my word for it. Let's listen to Vicki Smallman tell us in her own words.
We bring Vicki Smallman on to speak now. Vicki Smallman is the Director of Human Rights at the Canadian Labour Congress, and she is one of the leads on the CLC's Emergency Task Force on Anti-2S LGBTQIA+ hate. And Vicki's going to give us a bit of an update on what's happening Canada-wide. So the national sort of perspective on what's going on here. Vicki, thank you so much for being with us here today, and I'll throw it over to you now.
Thanks. So just to give folks a bit of a background introduction, I'm Vicki Smallman. I'm the Director of Human Rights at the Canadian Labour Congress. And we sort of are responsible for policy and campaigning, coalition building on the full sort of spectrum of human rights. And we are sort of actioning the CLC resolution that was passed at our convention. There was an emergency resolution passed on the floor thanks to the efforts of the 2S LGBTI Workers Caucus and allies. And it basically, and I will just quickly read it so folks have the context, that the CLC will encourage and support affiliates to condemn attacks against workers, families, and communities that support and defend trans, drag, and 2S LGBTQI+ events. Create flying squads to, that's B, so we will encourage and support affiliates to create flying squads to provide meaningful support to workers, organizations, and communities facing attacks. And 2, call for an emergency task force to develop a guide outlining health and safety tools for affiliates to ensure the safety of workers where events occur. So we established the task force in June. There's been 3 meetings so far. The focus has primarily been on kind of getting the lay of the land and information sharing to find out sort of where things are taking place, who might be sort of forming in the process of formally forming flying squads or joining established local networks who have been doing this work for some time to sort of bolster and provide capacity and support and resources to ongoing countering activities. And we've been focused on creating this health and safety guide. It's not ready. I wish it were. The timing of this is terrible because it would be really nice to have this guide out now. But it won't be ready for a few more weeks. There's a draft that's been out to the task force members for comment, and we hope to have it to you soon. In the meantime, the CLC has been, and the guide is really focused on addressing the way that 2S LGBTI hate shows up at work. So not so much responding to a specific moment in time like right now, which is much more of a fluid situation. I mean, really organizing against this particular effort is like organizing against Jello, because the anti-hate crowd or the anti-2S-LGBTI crowd, there's various camps and groups that are sort of uniting and collaborating under one banner. Many of them are, we don't know for sure if a protest is happening or not happening, who's behind it, and so on. A lot of that intelligence, a lot of that work really needs to happen at the grassroots local level, right? Which many of you already know. So we're trying to find ways to bolster support, give additional capacity, and encouraging our affiliates and our labor councils to connect with local activists that may already be doing the work to see how they can help create their own infrastructures. And what it's going to look like is really different depending on each affiliate, each labor council, each community. So that is kind of happening. In the meantime, we've also launched a digital campaign called Workers United Against Hate, and have been sort of putting stuff out through the summer, through Pride, the sort of tail end of Pride season. And all of our affiliates and local labor councils received a package of graphics, talking points, and that type of thing for these events that are happening, because they really are, like, the whole issue has sort of evolved from drag story time to really target these inclusive education policies, and the parental rights rhetoric has sort of come to the fore, and the disturbing thing I have to say about all of this is, while it's really easy to sort of say, well, these are fringe voices, these are, the convoy, writ large, etc., all of it is being validated and platformed and echoed by provincial governments and by the federal Conservative Party, right? Which offers a bit of a legitimacy, and they have decided that it is politically expedient to essentially throw trans kids, families, queer people, queer workers, kids under the bus in order to win votes. I mean, we see in Manitoba right now actual bus ads from Conservative candidates because they're in a provincial election using parents' rights rhetoric as the hook. It's really crappy, right? So now we are really trying to find effective ways to counter it. We will be sending out some more talking points, and so on. But so that's where we're at. We're trying to respond on a day-to-day basis to this very rapidly changing landscape. A memo will be going out from the CLC to affiliates and labor councils about next week's demos, hopefully today, encouraging folks to connect with local organizers to try and ensure that there is a visible sort of presence in the communities where these events are taking place. And really, I think that Shawnee's point about trying to flip the script on the rhetoric is really, really important, and not let them set the agenda. We need to let folks know that, that 2S LGBTI rights are important and central to the work that the labor movement does. This is about solidarity in action. We need to express sort of love, care, and support for trans and queer kids and workers and communities, and send a really strong message that hate has no place in our communities or our workplaces or our unions, period. And hopefully we'll see a sort of a wave of love and support and care on that day.
What on earth are flying squads? Vicky said she wants to create flying squads to provide meaningful support to workers' organizations and communities facing attacks. Why is Vicky deciding to paint peaceful protesters, peaceful parental rights protesters, as some kind of menace? These flying squads seem to be aimed at shutting down lawful protest. Now, to reiterate, the parents and citizens who gathered for the 1 Million March for Children, for the most part, were asking for parental inclusion in schools, age-appropriate resources and materials, political neutrality in the classroom, and not to mention transparency and accountability from educators. So things like not keeping secrets from parents about gender or sexual content. Smallman's framing of these parents as attacking communities is a serious misrepresentation. The truth is, these protesters are not anti-LGBT, nor are they promoting hate. They're advocating for themselves and for their families. Asking teachers to respect all families shouldn't be controversial. Yet, Smallman pushes the narrative that these peaceful protesters are somehow dangerous and calling for unions to step in. So I'll quote her here. She said, "We're trying to find ways to bolster support, giving additional capacity and encourage our affiliates and our labor councils to connect with local activists to create our own infrastructures. Infrastructures against ordinary citizens. These are not union members." So to me, this raises serious concerns. Organizing so-called flying squads to confront peaceful parents and citizens who are basically worried about their children's education. This walks a fine line into intimidation and coercion. For me, the key issue here is that parents are exercising their democratic right to protest, and they've done so legally and lawfully. And Smallman is using her position at OFL to coerce and intimidate those parents and citizens, accusing them of being a false boogeyman. It really is time to hold these ideologues to account. If you liked this video, you can watch others in my series on this Zoom call. And if you feel so inclined, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.